But Temi Fagbenle has perspective, being a player in the league and obviously a teammate of Caitlin Clark's. Here is what Temi had to say in a thread that she posted. Let me make this clear. Cece can speak about having white privilege without hating herself. Cece can acknowledge the reality of race disparities without pandering to any group. Cece can celebrate the giants who have come before her without diminishing her own historic accomplishments.
That's how much money women's basketball lost in 20 years until she arrived. Now a WNBA veteran is exploding on camera about Caitlin Clark's impact. They're attacking the wrong person. Temi Fagbenle declares the real story. It's not about race, it's not about privilege. It's about who's really holding women's basketball back. And Fagbenle isn't holding anything back, so look, something absolutely wild just happened in the WNBA and nobody saw this coming. Temi Fagbenle, veteran player who's seen it all in women's basketball, just came out swinging in defense of Caitlin Clark. And trust me, what she had to say is shaking up the entire sports world. Let me set the scene for you real quick. I think most people know this is just a select group trying to twist things. The US's race issue is so ingrained that I believe a majority of them don't even think they are twisting anything. The immediate response to anyone talking about how race affects anything is denial. This is a great opportunity for some respectful conversations about race in the U.S. However, the combos will only be beneficial if there are no racist or prejudiced people involved. We've all been watching this drama unfold around Caitlin Clark's Time magazine interview, where she talked about her white privilege and tried to shine a light on the black players who built the WNBA. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but nobody expected what happened. Next, look, Temi Fagbenle is a fan favorite for a reason. Like she was a DAO leader early on that season for IND. Yeah, she played unbelievably hard. She was one of their best defenders. She was the first player to really embrace Caitlin, and for that, Demi Flee will always be a fan favorite player for the rest of the time. Enter Temi Fagbenle. Now, if you don't know who she is, let me break it down for you. She's been in the trenches of women's basketball for years. She's played international. She's been in the WNBA, and she knows exactly what it's like to fight for recognition in this sport. So when she speaks up, people listen. And boy, did she have something to say. Fagbenle came out with this absolutely fire take that had everyone's jaws on the floor. She started by addressing something that nobody else was talking about, the real impact Clark is having on the league. But here's what's crazy. Instead of joining the chorus of critics, she took a completely different angle. This is Temi attempting to have Caitlin Clark's back. And Caitlin Clark should not apologize for being white and should not hate herself. And being white has, in my opinion, nothing to do with her success on the basketball court, or very, very, very little to do. She pointed out how for over 2 decades, think about that, more than 20 years, the WNBA had been begging for basic things like chartered flights. Players were out here flying commercial, dealing with delays, connections, all that mess. Then Clark shows up and boom, 2 weeks later, they've got chartered flights. Fagbenle was like, are we really going to act like this isn't a good thing? But she didn't stop there. She started breaking down the numbers. And this is where it gets really interesting. Since Clark entered the picture, attendance at games has been through the roof. TV ratings breaking records left and right. The WNBA draft on ABC and ESPN numbers we've never seen before. And Fagbenle was quick to point out this isn't just good for Clark, this is good for everybody in the league. I believe Caitlin was simply trying to convey, one, that she respects her peers and those that came before her, which is a great message, and two, that yeah, maybe she did get a fan base activated that wasn't going to be following the WNBA before because of the curiosity factor about this white girl from Iowa. That's what I think she was trying to convey. Not here's where Fagbenle take got really powerful. She started talking about how some people in the WNBA community were getting this whole thing twisted. They're out here resenting Clark for bringing attention to the league, acting like somehow her success is taken away from other players. And Fagbenle wasn't having any of it. She broke it down like this: when you've got someone who's actually making things better for everyone, why would you fight against that? It's like being mad at the person who got everyone in the office AR raised just because they're new to the company. It doesn't make any sense. But what really set Fagbenle's response apart was how she addressed the privilege conversation. She pointed out how Clark didn't just acknowledge a privilege, she actively used her platform to elevate black players. She talked about the importance of recognizing the pioneers who built the WNBA. And as Fagbenle put it, that's not something you see every day. She drew this brilliant parallel to other movements for change. You know how during the civil rights era, they didn't reject allies who wanted to help, they welcomed them, because when you're fighting for progress, you need all the support you can get. And that's exactly what Fagbenle was trying to get people to understand about this situation. The way she broke it down was so clear. If you're going to be mad at the system that's been holding women's basketball back all these years. Be mad at the corporate structures that didn't give the WNBA the recognition it deserved. Be mad at the decision makers who denied these athletes proper working conditions for decades. But don't be mad at someone who's actually trying to make things better. Fagbenle got really real about something else too. She talked about how some people were so focused on who's bringing the change that they're missing the bigger picture. The league is finally getting some of the things it's been fighting for: better travel conditions, more media coverage, bigger crowds, isn't that what everyone's been working toward? But here's where her message hit different. She started talking about unity and making real change. She pointed out how historically successful movements for equality haven't succeeded by rejecting allies. They succeeded by building coalitions, by bringing together people from different backgrounds who share the same goals. And that's exactly what Clark is trying to do. Fagbenle emphasized how Clark isn't just talking about privilege, she's actively using her platform to highlight the contributions of black players who built the WNBA. She's talking about the importance of elevating black women in the sport. As Fagbenle put it, that's not taking away from anyone's legacy, that's adding to it. She brought up another point that really made people think success in women's sports isn't a zero-sum game. Clark drawing more attention to the WNBA doesn't diminish anyone else's achievements. If anything, it brings more attention to the incredible players who came before her, who built this league from the ground up. But let me tell you where Bennett's message made really hit home. She started talking about the long-term impact of all this drama, and that's when people really started paying attention, because what's happening right now isn't just about Caitlin Clark or one season, it's about the future of women's basketball as a whole. Bentley broke down something that nobody else was really talking about: the business side of things. She pointed out how before Clark getting major sponsors interested in the WNBA was like pulling teeth, but now companies are lining up to get involved. TV networks are fighting for broadcasting rights. Social media engagement is through the roof. And guess what? That money and attention benefits everyone in the league, not just one player. She got really specific about this too. You know how much WNBA players used to make compared to their male counterparts? It was straight up embarrassing. But now with all this new attention and money flowing in, there's actual talk about raising salary caps, improving benefits, getting better facilities. And Fagbenle was like, are we really going to complain about who brought these improvements? And she dropped this truth bomb that had everyone thinking. She talked about how some of the same people criticizing Clark now were the ones complaining for years about how the WNBA needed more exposure, more media coverage, more investment. Well, now they're getting it. As Fagbenle put it, sometimes blessings don't come in the package you expected. But here's where her message got really powerful. She started talking about the international impact of all this. Fagbenle has played basketball all over the world, and she knows firsthand how the WNBA is viewed globally. She pointed out how this increased attention isn't just helping American players, it's creating opportunities for players from all over the world who dream of playing in the WNBA. She shared this story about young players she's met in different countries who are now watching WNBA games for the first time because of all the buzz. And once they start watching, they're not just seeing Clark, they're discovering A.A. Wilson's dominance. They're learning about Breanna Stewart's incredible career. They're hearing about the pioneers who built this league from the ground up. Fagbenle didn't hold back when addressing critics either. She called out this weird double standard where some people want the league to grow, but only if it grows in exactly the way they think it should. As she put it, progress doesn't always come knocking on front doors, sometimes it comes through the window, and you better be ready to welcome it. Then she got into something really interesting: the generational impact. She talked about how young players today, regardless of their background, are seeing something they've never seen before: a women's basketball league that's getting prime time coverage, major sponsorship deals, and real mainstream attention. And she made this brilliant point: why are we arguing about who turned on the lights when we should be celebrating that people can finally see what we've been doing in the dark? But Fagbenle wasn't just defending Clark, she was calling for something bigger. She started talking about how this moment could be a turning point for women's basketball if people would just get out of their own way. She pointed out how every major sports league had that moment where things changed, where they went from struggling to thriving. And right now, the WNBA might be having that moment. She brought up the CIA crazy statistics about how viewership has grown, how social media engagement has exploded, how merchandise sales are breaking records. But then she made this really important point: none of that matters if the league can't unite and build on this momentum. As she put it, we can either fight about who deserves credit, or we can work together to make sure this isn't just a moment, but a movement. The way Fagbenle broke down the economics of it all was eye-opening too. She talked about how more attention means more money, which means better salaries, which means more girls seeing professional basketball as a viable career. It means more resources for player development, better facilities, more investment in grassroots programs. It's like this domino effect that benefits everyone in the sport. And here's where she really got people thinking. She started talking about legacy, not just Clark's legacy or her own legacy, but the legacy of the WNBA as a whole. She posed this question that had everyone quiet: 20 years from now, what do we want people to remember about this moment that we fought amongst ourselves, or that we came together and took women's basketball to heights we never imagined? Fagbenle addressed something that really needed to be said: this idea that supporting Clark somehow means dismissing the struggles of players who came before. She shut that down real quick. She talked about how Acknowledging current success doesn't erase past struggles. If anything, it validates them. All those years of fighting for recognition, all those players who worked multiple jobs just to keep playing, all those pioneers who built this league, they did it so that one day women's basketball could have exactly this kind of moment she wrapped up with is powerful.